Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Intuition Activation Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica, a spiritual medium and intuitive coach, and I am so excited to have you here to join me for this intuitive development journey. Guys, I have such a treat for you in today's episode. I'm so excited. We have a special guest. Her name is Kathy Harmon Luber, and she is the author of an incredible book called Suffering to Thriving, Your Toolkit for Navigating Your Healing Journey and How to Live a More Healthy, Peaceful, and Joyful Life. Guys, she has such an incredible story. This is a woman who went from having debilitating spine injuries to fully healing or almost completely healing. And this became the catalyst for her journey into diving deeper into being a Reiki healer as well as an energy or a sound healer. And she talks all about her story and her journey in this episode. But we dive into all of the things we really talk, go deep in sort of everything that comes with intuitive development. And we dive into all of the woo-woo things that come along with diving into your true path and purpose. We talk about dreams, we talk about astrology, we talk about energy healing, we talk about sound healing. And guys, Kathy is just so inspiring. I was on the edge of my seat with every word that she had to say. And I just can't wait to introduce her to you and let you hear this incredible story and meet this incredible individual. One thing I do want to point out is that we do get to talking about the importance of diving into your astrology chart and your human design chart. And I do want to remind you guys that we do have an incredible workshop coming up in the Intuition Activation community on Monday, May 12th. Monica Lorraine, who I had on this podcast, who just human design for us, and she explained all about human design for us, is going to be showing up in the Intuition Activation community to teach us all about how to dive in and decipher our human design chart. So if you are interested in that and want some one-on-one attention from an expert on how to read your own chart and how to find your own path and purpose, you can even find from your human design chart how you channel best. This is really going to be such an incredible workshop, and she's going to be joining us in the community. So if you haven't signed up for the Intuition Activation community, link in the show notes, come and join us. You can cancel anytime. So just come and join us at least for this workshop and see if the rest of the stuff we do in there is for you. Otherwise, guys, I don't even want to wait any longer to introduce you to this incredible human. Please welcome and join me for this beautiful conversation with Kathy. Well, welcome, Kathy, to the Intuition Activation Podcast. I am so thrilled and excited to have you here.
Hi, Jessica. I am so happy to be here and can't wait for our conversation.
Yes, I am so excited to dive into everything because you have such an incredible story. But I would really love to start with this question, which I would like to pose to all of my guests from here on out because I think it's such an interesting thing to explore. But I'm curious what your definition of intuition is. What does intuition mean to you?
That is such a big question, Jessica. Okay. I would say that to me, intuition is I think two things. First of all, there's this lovely quote by Wayne Dyer, and I hope I can get it right. It's something like, if prayer is you talking to God, then intuition is God talking to you. And I love that, because whatever you believe God is, like in it doesn't have to be any one religion. It could be goddess, it could be source, great creator, whatever people think that their God is, it that feels like intuition to me. And for me personally, it comes from my heart, and and from my body. It's like it's a soul presence that speaks to me. It's our higher self. It's our it's our soul that is here in this journey on earth with us to guide us. And if we tap in and listen to our hearts, to our bodies, like sometimes it comes from our guts, right? Sometimes it comes from a place in our body that it speaks. When those things like clenching of the muscles, right? Or if we break out in hives or whatever it is, those parts of our body are also speaking intuition. they're a part that we need to listening to the body. So I think as I bumble through this definition, I think I'm getting at it's within us. It's listening to the within and to the divine, however we define that. Yeah.
Yeah, so beautiful. I absolutely love that quote, and I'm going to use that for sure because
Isn't
that
that
is
brilliant?
so brilliant, and it's simple, but it's like simplified, but like in the most depth. Like there's so much depth to that. So I love
Yeah.
it. And I think I totally agree with you that it's a little bit of this dance between your body and your soul and source or God like speaking to you and through you. And I think it's just all of the things because we are all part of the creator. We all are a piece of it, right?
Yes.
And so every aspect of us then can speak to us.
Yes.
And so I think that's so beautiful. And I am just so excited because this brings us to, first of all, you have written a book.
Yes.
And it's a really big part of your whole life story. And you're incredibly intuitive. You also are a Reiki practitioner and you teach people all over the world how they can heal their bodies through things like intuition and sound healing and Reiki and energy work. And there's just so much here that but for those of my listeners who have never met you, never heard of you, I would love if you could just walk us through a little bit of your story and your background. If you could actually even start before you got sick and just share with us kind of what your upbringing was. Were you raised in a spiritual family? Was this something that was talked about a lot, or was it completely the opposite? And then definitely bring us to the journey that led you to writing your book.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good place to start, actually. I was raised, my parents and my sister and I lived in Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania. And we had this lovely house at the edge of this little woods. And I was a total little wild child nature girl, creative art girl. I hung out with the rabbits and the turtles and the birds in the woods and with our dog Taffy. And I just had this really magical, enchanting life because I could talk to the trees and the birds, and not just when I was like 3 or 5. Like as I continued to grow up, I still had this relationship with nature, and things spoke to me. Like I heard voices. I had this imagination. I could see things. And that wasn't necessarily a good thing when I was in school or when I even at home. Like, okay, so my parents raised us for a time in the Methodist church. My mom was Catholic, but there was no strict religious upbringing. But I knew that some people thought that my vivid imagination was probably a sign of the devil or something, not my parents, but like other people around. And I was very, very creative musically and artistically. And my mom encouraged that so much. And so it was really the nature girl thing really inspired my art and music, actually. So then fast forward to the time I was 14, my dad got a job. I thought we'd always live at that house and have this magical life. My dad got a job in the South, in North Carolina. And it was a huge and really hard adjustment. And I went into a terrible depression. I went off to college. I was still in a terrible depression. And the story moves forward. And then about, and I'd always had, I should add here, I had always had health problems. And they tended to be upper respiratory kinds of things. And then when I was about 20, I discovered that I had inherited several, like 7 spinal diseases from my dad's side of the family. And when I asked doctors, like, well, what does that mean? They said, oh, you'll be in a wheelchair by the time you're 35. And I was like, what? No, no. And I was really active. Like, I was a runner. I did all kinds of sports, gymnastics, dance, the whole thing. And I was like, yeah, no way. That is not going to happen to me. But I kept having more and more problems. But it put me on the path to listen to my body, to talk to many complementary medicine modality people body workers and things like that. I got into acupuncture, got into it, meaning going to acupuncture, going to myofascial release massage, those kinds of things to really take care of my body, supplements, the whole thing. I just really dug into that and said, I am not going to be in a wheelchair by the time I'm 35. And
Mm.
the great news is to this day, I'm still not, and I knock on wood as I say that. But okay, so then I began to have more and more serious problems. And I was still very, very active, but I began to just dig in even deeper into Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, trying to find answers. And the great news is all of those things pulled together bit by bit, the pieces that work for me made a huge difference in my life. And by the time I was in my mid 40s, I was not in a wheelchair, right?
Mm.
Then 2016 happened. In 2016, I had the fourth spinal disc rupture. And for those who don't know, the spinal discs are these little pillows. They're like jelly donuts between your vertebrae and your spine. And one broke disastrously.
Okay.
And the fluid inside glommed onto my sciatic nerve, which caused tremendous, off the charts, never before experienced pain. I'd had lots of injuries and back things before then. It was really horrendous. It left me bedridden for 5 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm the kind of person, I'm an overachiever. It's like if somebody says, yes, it's going to take 2 weeks. It's like, no, I'll be done by one. Thanks so much. But it lasted for 5 years of really, really debilitating. But the interesting part of the story is I wasn't listening to my intuition. That year, I was leading a really busy life. I had some foreign travel trips that were wonderful. My husband and I did a trip up the Oregon coast. I had a full-time job. I was on 3 boards of directors. I was performing classical flute every weekend. I was photographing friends' weddings. Yes, insane. And I went on a business trip that was 3 hours away, there and back.
Mm.
And that was just the straw that broke the camel's back.
Literally.
So literally. So I wasn't listening to my intuition. My body was sending me all the signs. And I was like, yeah, I know. I got to rest. I'll do that for a couple of hours on the weekend. Or guess what? Thanksgiving's coming. I'll rest over Thanksgiving weekend. And of course, I never did that. I never just completely gave my body what it needed, right?
Mm.
And so I learned the hard way. I call it the universe's smackdown,
Yeah.
because it was a really loud lesson. It was like, Kathy, you are not paying attention. What do we have to do? Oh, and it happened. So in a nutshell, that's the story. But the great news is that was years ago. I can walk, I can get around. I'm doing things again. So it's been consistent improvement. Am I able to do half the things I used to do? No. Like I'll never ride a horse again. I'll never be a runner or even a mountain hiker again. No. But it's okay because intuition helped me to find the blessing in all of this. I know. If you had said that to me all those years ago, there's a silver lining, Kathy, I would have said, get out of here. Just do not talk to me about that. But having come through it, I go, it was the greatest gift. It's what I needed to
Right.
get on a better path. I was on a great path, but and
Mhm.
had the life of my dreams, but like I'm on a better path now that is way more in alignment with my soul's journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so inspiring. And I would love to sort of hear what sort of brought you then into the space of, because I mean, all of the healing modalities that you mentioned, right? Like acupuncture and Ayurveda, like, although they are somewhat more, I guess you would say, on the fringe or kind of a little bit further away from regular allopathic medicine, I would maybe say that things like Reiki and sound healing are even more on the fringe, right? And not sort of
Yes.
commonplace. So what brought you to kind of get to that place, and how did that sort of kind of participate in your healing?
It was huge. It was really huge. Okay, so I would say though that Reiki and sound healing are in the integrative departments of numerous, like a majority of hospitals, nursing homes, hospice places across the US Canada, and Europe. Like it is becoming a really big thing. And more doctors are integrating that into like oncology departments. My mother was hospitalized years ago with cancer, and she when she was there in the hospital getting treatment for the duration, and then when she went into hospice, they had sound healing. They had a person who practiced Reiki to come in and give her Reiki sessions. And that was 2 years ago. So it is really gaining a foothold. It really is. Okay. So how did I get into it? Yeah. All right. So back probably about 20 years ago, I had a very stressful job as an executive director of a nonprofit that helped people with developmental disabilities. And my whole career has been in nonprofits, but in like fundraising and management. Very stressful. You know, you got to raise a lot of money, that the need is always greater than what you can do. And I needed ways to cope. And I was a meditator. I've been meditating since I was in my probably late 20s, and doing all the things I was telling you about. But I was still having massive anxiety, just like out of control anxiety and stress. And so a friend said to me, "Hey, let's go to this particular yoga studio. They have sound." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like I didn't even know what was really going on. And I fell in love with the Tibetan bowls and the crystal bowls and the gong. And so I went to a lot of those sessions. And then I started going to drumming circles on the beach at Santa Monica,
Love it.
and just fell in love with that. And I'm a lifelong musician since I was like 3 years old. You know, I've been playing piano and flute and things. So the music side of me also loved that. But then it was just deeply healing. It was not like performing classical Baroque music where you've got to be perfect. It was just enjoying sound, which was such a great experience for me. So I incorporated that more and more into my life. And then I began collecting crystal bowls and Native American flutes and drums and, you know, all the things. And then finally a gong. And the real turning point was when I was flat on my back. Like I had learned a lot about sound healing, and I had been going to Reiki for a very long time. And my Reiki practitioner said, "You have a gift for this yourself. You need to learn Reiki." And I did. But it was not until the smackdown, I was flat on my back, and I was still working, mind you, with my laptop on my belly. But I thought to myself, I can't go out and do things like my husband and I used to do. I can't go hiking. I used to swim 3 hours a week and hike about 5 or 6 hours a week. I couldn't do any of that. What do you do with all that time? And I realized I have a choice. Look, I went through the really dark nights of the soul. I got very depressed. I got help. And, but then there came a point where I said, every moment is a choice, Kathy. You could be like this. And when doctors started saying it's going to be more than 2 or 3 years, it might be the rest of your life that you'll be like this, bedridden, I was like, oh, wow, I have a decision to make. I either figure a way through this, or I become a bitter old woman one day who's been bedridden for most of her life, right? So I thought, yeah, that's not going to be me. So how do I do this? And I thought, okay, so what lights me up? I started asking all the right questions, because we go down the dark elevator shaft of wrong questions. Why did this happen to me? Why me? Will this end? Will this ever end? What if my husband and all my friends leave me? Who will take care of me? Like all the bad questions, the human mind just tends to go to that place. And I thought, okay, I need to ask better questions.
Yeah.
And this comes out of all of the spiritual practices for so many decades. It's like we have to ask better questions to get better answers.
Mhm.
And like Einstein said, if you continue to try to solve things in the same old way, you'll get the same old results. I needed to find a new way. So I said, all right, what would light me up? What makes me feel good? And my husband came in one day when I'm lying flat on my back in tears and just feeling sorry for myself, frankly. And he said, what what is at the front of your mind right now? I said, I can't play my flute anymore. I miss that. I just really miss that. I miss playing with my friends and, performing in town. I miss it. He says, I'm going to go to your studio and grab one of your Native American flutes. The classical flute goes out to the side and it twists the back. The Native American flute is played forward. I could play that flat on my back. And I started doing that and it made me feel better. He got my drum and I could drum with it on my belly. It's like crazy, but not correct posture or anything. But it's like, but I did it and it felt good. He got my Tibetan bowls. So to cut a long story short, I took a deeper dive into that and I got certified. I knew a lot about sound healing, but I thought, I want the credentials. So I got certified in that. I became a Reiki master and I already was level 2, but I studied online to get my Reiki master and then got all the attunements and everything. And so it was the healing journey that got me to the point of getting serious about taking the very deeper dive into energy and sound healing that I probably wouldn't have gotten around to in my otherwise very busy life, right? Like I think it probably wouldn't have happened or it would have taken forever to happen. It was that, and it was following the intuition of tapping into my body and saying, what do I need right now? What is it that I need right now to feel better physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of them, not just physically, what will help the pain go away, emotionally, what will make me feel more joyful, but also spiritually. It's like, what taps me into source and makes me feel one with all.
Yeah.
Sound and energy really do that for me. Yeah.
And do you attribute sort of you diving deeper into those things to kind of the things that maybe helped restore your physical health? Would you
Oh
say
yeah.
that journey? Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. The day once I began doing the daily Reiki practice on myself, right? That was a game changer, as was like I started making quantum healing when I did two things. Like I was getting so slowly better. Like it took a year to walk to the bedroom door practically. It was like that slow. It took a tremendous amount of months past that to get to the kitchen and stand for 5 minutes to make a cup of tea. Like we're talking like tiny incremental progress. And I have to mention it was all inoperable. It would have been like a 14 to 20-hour surgery, and they gave me a 50-50 chance of being any better than I was.
Right.
So, because there were so many spinal diseases in the mix. So it was very incremental. But when I really started doing the daily Reiki and daily sound healing, and the big game changer when I got a gong. And one of my teachers, John Stewart Reed, was doing one of these classes, and it was a really, it's a deeply scientific class about the science and the medical doctors' studies of why sound is being used to diagnose cancer and all kinds of things, and why it's being integrated into hospitals, and how the cells of our body sing in a certain frequency. And I can talk about that more if you want. But anyway, all of these exciting things I was really into. And then he said the one thing that changed my life. He said, the most healing of all the instruments is the gong. And of course, we all wanted to know why, because the gong has the lowest of low frequencies and highest of high frequencies way out beyond the human ear's range. But our cells pick up that sound, and the cells sing in a certain frequency, like heart cells and liver cells and kidney cells. They each have their own frequency, brain cells. And what scientists have recently found, and this is fascinating work out of UCLA here in California, Dr. Jim Zewski discovered that when cells are atrophied or diseased or dying, they stop emitting their sound. What makes them come back to life and invigorated? That frequency. So brain cells, if people are experiencing things like any kind of dementia or brain diseases, that when they apply those frequencies, which I think is 30 hertz, 40 hertz, don't quote me on that, but one of the specific frequencies, when they use that, they see the brain cells begin to reinvigorate. And as you can imagine, this has medical doctors think that this has great potential for healing moving forward, because if we can prevent dementia and things, right? Or heart disease or anything. They have specific frequencies for the gallbladder now. We can prevent these things from happening, or when they happen, treat them with Western medicine and accelerate the healing with sound healing. Then and they are even finding that they can diagnose the specific sound of cancer cells, and all they need is one cell. You extract, one cell as you would in a biopsy or whatever, and can identify it. Oncologists are, especially Dr. Mitchell Gaynor, is he he has a lot of oncology patients, and he does sound baths with all of them as part of their oncology treatment protocol. So it really is being integrated right now by doctors all over the country and world. And it's very, very exciting. But the long and short of your question was, it was really an opportunity to get certified and all this stuff and learn all this stuff. But the gong was like the big turning point when structurally I began to have like real healing with my spine. And mind you, there was a time when I could only sit in front of my gong for 5 minutes. 20 minutes is really the sweet spot. Like we want to give sound healing for at least 20 minutes, an immersion in sound. I couldn't even do that much, and I was seeing results.
Wow.
So that is when I went, okay, I have to really, really lean into this. So I would do it more times a day, and I'd get out my Tibetan bowls. And if I couldn't get to the gong that day, because there were days that I couldn't, I would just put my Tibetan bowl on my stomach and just ring it for as long as I wanted to and could. And knowing that also was healing, because it has a wide range of frequencies. Yeah.
This is so beautiful and just incredible. And I'm so excited to hear, because I actually didn't know that, modern medicine was taking on sort of ancient practices and bringing in
Yeah.
things like them, because I know that like the spiritual world, like this is things that we've been saying, and maybe even Native Americans have been practicing, right?
Yes.
For centuries. And
Yes.
finally, the rest of the world and science is kind of catching up and, taking that on. And it really boils down to the same sort of conclusion, which is that we are all energy, and that energy can affect
Yes.
energy, right? Like it's
Yes.
all about how you can shift and change that. And that is so freeing to know that nothing is written in stone, right?
No,
And you can really
exactly.
shift all of that. And I'm so excited to hear, and also like your journey. I do want to kind of rewind for a second, because as you were telling me about your story, it rings so true for everybody that I talk to, and even from my own story. There really is this kind of through line, or this thread that we notice of how, God, the universe, is working for us and through us, right? And
Yes.
if you're not listening, and if you're not in alignment, this is how surrounded and protected you are. You will get rocked back or knocked
Yes.
back into alignment, whether and so the question always is then, are you going to pay attention to your intuition, hear those little whispers so you don't have to get the rug pulled out from under you, right? Or
Right.
are you going to keep
Yes.
doing your thing? But at the end of the day, somebody's there putting you back on your path, your very narrow path, the thing that you were set on this earth to do. And if you're going to
That's
ignore
right.
it, you're going to end up back in the place where you're supposed to be. And it's just so nice to think that we're not flailing here, right? We're not here just trying to figure it out. And, if you do stray, and you're not listening to your true path or your intuition, or you get so distracted from it, you're always going to be led back. And it's so
Yes.
beautiful to see that with you. Not only did you get led back to it, I mean, you got thrown back, right?
Yeah.
You got really shoved back in, but like look at the work that you're doing now, and look at how many people are getting to benefit from the story, like from your story. And it almost was like you needed to go through that in some ways to understand the people that you then are able to help,
Oh,
right?
sure. Yes, absolutely. All of that is exactly spot on. See, it's all about trust. Like so often we hear our intuition speak and we don't trust. How many times do we say, oh, I should have followed my gut instinct or whatever you want to call it? It is about trust. And the thing was, I was in this place where I thought I was living that life that I was called to lead. I have always worked with nonprofits that make the world a better place. They fight for the environment. They help traumatize children and youth. They help get homeless kids off the streets, all the good stuff. I thought that's my mission in life, right? And I'm
Right.
on the spiritual path all these decades. I thought, this is it. I'm on it. I'm on it. But I was not listening. Was there came a time when I was meant to move to this other path and not abandon the original path, but move more gently toward this other path. And I was thinking, oh, I love sound healing. I love to just meditate all day. I love Reiki. And we are energy beings, right? And that is why all of this stuff works. And I'm totally into it. But in my heart, I would hear that's where you're meant to go. And my mind would kick in, my ego would say, oh no, 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 got to keep the job, got to keep doing that. That's your path. That's your mission. And so I just kept doing that and saying, okay, I'll dabble in sound healing. I'll dabble in Reiki. And
Right.
that is not what my life purpose is. So it is all about listening to intuition deeply and not discounting it when it comes or saying, oh, I'll give you a little bit of that. That's what I was doing. I was giving a little bit of that. And and my soul wants all of it. It wants the whole journey, not just in my free hours after work and friends and family and all the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it does take a little bit of blind faith because,
it does.
like yes, the ego mind does jump in and go, okay, like, great, this is my passion. I love it, but is it going to support me? Right. Like there's still that survival
Yes.
part of us that kind of goes,
Yes.
what if I do jump into this? Like, what does that look like for my life? And you do have to kind of lean into the unknown and go, okay, I hear those callings, right? I hear the messages, right? To the point where, I can't but be aware of them because now I'm, flat on my back. I have no other choice but to lean into them. And it's sort of like, but I have no idea what is going to result from this, right? If I do go this path and it's not
Yeah.
what I've been trained to believe is the logical way of doing well or success in this world.
Right.
Right. And
Yes,
so, it
exactly.
does take a little bit of faith for sure. And I do just
Yeah.
want to point out, I know this is so funny, but there is two crows that are flying back and forth in front of my window. They're getting so close as we're talking. I'm
Raven
like,
is one of my spirit birds.
the raven, I don't know, it's like these two big blackbirds, and they keep trying to, like, I keep thinking they're gonna hit the window. They never get this close. So clearly we've called in some energy.
I believe that. And see, that's the other thing that I just love. When we do tap into this energy, this intuitive, soul aligned energy, and we are walking in that energy and listening, all the synchronicities, all the beautiful dreams that come to us, the downloads that come to us of wisdom, the people who cross our paths, the animals who show up, right? All of the things. It's like those synchronicities, just there are just so many of them.
Yeah.
That's how I know that I am on the right path. And like when I get a little too off of it, those things kind of shut off. So I'm like, oh, wait, what am I doing? It's kind of a little bit of a course correction because we all do it. Like, look, I get really busy. I do the grant writing still for nonprofits, and I get really busy. We have a lot of deadlines, and everything goes out the window, right? And then, but I've got to, excuse me, pull myself back to that, get back on track with the authentic path of where I need to go. And we can balance them both. It's just sometimes very, very difficult. But when we get off, we know those synchronicities stop happening, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And it's
Yeah.
almost like, the more that you're open and aware of all the signs and symbols and your intuition, right? like you actually, and I heard this really beautiful kind of Kabbalistic idea on a podcast the other day, and it was sort of like our soul's purpose is actually a very narrow bridge, right? Like there's this feeling of like
Mm,
it's actually like your purpose is very specifically like for you, right? And
yes.
so, the intuition, God is always speaking to you to kind of help keep you on your path and your path alone, right? We can
Yeah.
dive into spirituality and have it be this sort of meandering path of, oh, I'll take a Reiki class here and I'll do a yoga class there and I'll live a spiritual life. But will it be your life? Right? The life that you're here to fulfill and complete. And so I love this point that you just brought up, which is that you'll actually always be getting like confirmation and reassurance, the signs and symbols and angel numbers that show up.
Yes.
They're
Angel numbers.
letting you know you're still on your path. Keep going. This is the path, right? And when those disappear, it's like, oh, did I fall off the bridge a little bit? And you're
Right.
constantly being course corrected. So thank you so much for bringing that up. That's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
I just love that. I love what you said because I think right now at this time on earth, it's like every one of us is here at this crazy time on earth for a reason. I know that. And I just instinctively know that. And I think that, as you said, each one of us has absolutely unique, narrow little paths that we're meant to be on. And I think the whole goal right now is to find that path, stay on that path, because that is what is needed as the medicine for this time. It's like each one of us alone can't change the world. But if we're all walking on our path, doing our medicine that we bring, we are reaching people. And those are the people who are meant to be reached. And you're reaching a lot of people with your podcast. That is part of your path, right? That is what you are meant to do. People need this message. And like, but I have a very different one. And I just keep walking in that lane. And those people who need that come to me. But it's true for every person in the world. Even if we're only affecting one person, the person in our family or the neighbor next door or another part of our community, it's like that is enough. I have a spiritual teacher, Puma Freddy Quispe Singona, who teaches Andean shamanism. And he has said, especially recently with everything, that goes on in the world, he's like, even if you just radiate your light to the world and nothing more for the rest of your life, that is enough. That is what you are called to do. That is your path. And
Yeah.
I love that there's such simplicity there. We tend to make things so complicated. I've got to find my life purpose and I've got to make it, commercially successful or wherever we go with that in our minds because of societal conditioning and
Yeah.
family conditioning, right? It's like it doesn't need to be that complicated. It can be very, very simple. Just radiate your unique energy.
Yeah. And the rest will like then you'll be supported, right? And
Yes,
just want to
exactly.
point out also, like as you say that, it's now 12:12 on my clock. Like all of the things are just showing up as we're speaking right now.
The
It's
angel
so
numbers.
beautiful. Angel numbers.
Love
But I
it.
do actually would love to segue a little bit deeper into the woo-woo side of things here
Oh,
because
yes, please.
I noticed this as well, and I do have my Reiki certification, but only up to level 2. I never went into the master's Reiki master. However, I do notice this with a lot of my students and sort of people who come across my path who feel called to Reiki and energy healing. And I just what I'm discovering is that Reiki is often kind of like a really good segue or introduction or dip your toe into the water to recognizing your intuitive abilities to the point
Mhm.
where it becomes the thing that maybe opens up the your connection to spirit guides, loved ones, the other side, if you will, the other realms. And I'm curious if that was the case for you as you were kind of using whether Reiki on yourself or the people that you serve. Were messages for other people starting to come through? Were you noticing kind of beings that were coming in and offering different messages? What was that experience like for you?
It was so amazing. So, I'll say that before I even started practicing Reiki and learning Reiki, receiving Reiki, all these downloads, like one of my most amazing Reiki sessions out of hundreds, probably. I was on the table and my practitioner was working on me, and I felt myself levitate off the table, pivot toward the window, and there was a raven in my this is all a download, a raven flying, and I felt like I was floating behind it or something. It felt so real. I opened my eyes because I was like, am I off the table? I felt it in my body. It
Mm.
was amazing. And there were many other things like that that were much less dramatic. That was the most dramatic of them. But I would always get these downloads, or I would feel a presence in the room, light beings, ascended masters. I did not know that when I was on the table, that these were ascended masters. I had no idea. And so then when I began my Reiki study, in Reiki 1, what I would find is as I was working on someone or myself, but mostly on someone else, I would see these, it was almost like a film. I would see these movies of something like a being or an energy or a color. I see colors a lot pulling me toward a certain part of their body. And it was almost magnetic. I knew where the issue was.
Mm.
And most of the time that was right. Sometimes they couldn't confirm that. Sometimes they'd say, oh, yeah, I've had this tremendous bellyache for the past 2 months, but they didn't put that on their intake form, right?
Mm.
So, but other times they didn't know even that they might have been having an issue there, and there was never confirmation. But I would get these very big intuitive hits. And in the beginning, I just thought, oh, it's my imagination. Like, why is this happening? Why am I thinking this? I have to focus. I have to focus on channeling the energy. It's like, oh my, it was part of my Reiki gift, you know, that I see these things. I understand that not everybody does. Just like some people can feel the energy in their hands as heat. Some people don't and are still very powerful healers. And so for all of us, it affects all the clairs, right?
Yeah.
For me, it's a very visual thing, but I'm a visual learner. And so it kind of doesn't surprise me that it's that. And it also is the energy of it. But that is very, very much trusting and surrendering to the Reiki energy. And for those who aren't familiar with Reiki, it is we don't push our energy into people. We receive energy from source, right? It comes through us, it pours through us and out our hands to others. So we're not pushing any energy that we don't have any special magical energy or anything that we give to others. It
Yeah.
is, we are conduits, we're antenna for energy, right? And so if we think about it in that way, why not downloads of visual or other sensations of the body as we practice our Reiki? Yeah, and I've heard lots of stories from other practitioners of how they get those downloads, and it is not always as I've just explained it, for sure.
Yeah. And so it sounds to me like you are probably predominantly clairvoyant, like you're
Yes.
seeing things, and
Yeah.
me as well. I definitely see more than any of the other things, but you can definitely work to strengthen the other ones. I like to
Oh,
think that, they're the ones that we have most naturally, but like any other muscle, we can train it, right? And we
yes.
can make it stronger, but of course there's the ones that come to us naturally. And it's so beautiful, and I love that the explanation that you just gave, because I think a lot of people do kind of have the visualization of Reiki being like, do you remember those cartoons, the Care Bears?
Oh,
Where
yeah.
they would
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
share their love, and it's
Yes.
like coming from the love bear, whatever. I think that's what people think Reiki kind of is. It's like they're just sharing their love and light like through their
Yeah.
bellies or whatever they were doing.
That's right.
And it's like, it's no, 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 no. All I'm doing is opening myself up to be a vessel, right? To allow myself to be
Exactly.
a conduit of light. And that really is what channeling is as well. And so when you're calling that energy in, whether it's affecting a physical body, right? Sending energy to a physical body, or just to receive messages, it's the same course of action, I would say.
Yes, exactly. And I'll add to that. That's exactly right. And but like when I do sound healing, I work one-on-one with people because that way we can target exactly what their specific condition is, and I can target frequencies to that. And it's really super powerful. But when I'm doing those sessions, Jessica, it's like it's the same thing. I call in my guides and I ask them to guide me in the session. And like I don't pre-plan like what I'm going to say or what instrument it's going to be. I go into meditation and get those downloads. And then I might make some notes to myself so I don't forget. But I'm very much in that moment of channeling, what does this person need, work through me, what do they need, and I get very clear messages. Like sometimes it's just like all of a sudden in my head I'll hear the gong. It's like, oh, the gong, right. And I move to the gong for a while. I get the message, and that is an intuitive hit
Yeah.
brought to me by my soul, my guides. And sometimes I don't even know. I call it
Totally.
all in and I don't even know where it comes from, right?
Yeah.
But I just have to be an open vessel. And the times that the healings aren't as strong as when I first started doing this many, many years ago, and I wasn't listening to that. It was just a nice sound. It was nice sound. I'm sure it was healing on some level, but the power of it came again when I started practicing my superpower, which was to listen to the guidance of my intuition and bring that into the session. That's where the magic is. That's where the super healing is, right? And so it is about getting out of our own way. It's about surrendering and saying, this is not me
Yeah.
making, it's me doing the instruments, of course, and knowing what kind of how to play them. But even when I play Native American flute, the songs that come out every time they're different. It's never the same one twice
Mhm.
because I just listen, and the
Yeah.
notes tell me where to go, or something else tells me where to go. And that's what that person needs. And so when we can relax into intuition, that is where the amazing things happen. That
Yeah.
is where all of this super powerful healing comes from. It's
Yeah.
by getting out of our own way and I think to get to your original question, it's like when we begin studying Reiki, it's like we have to not find that strange when those messages come through. It is that absolute faith and trust that this is what we're meant to be doing, and go with it. And when we're learning, that's a scary thing. Like even when I was learning sound healing, I don't do sound healing anything like any other healer I've ever practiced with or had a session with. Mine is so totally unique, but that's the path I've been called to do. And again, it's sticking to that narrow bridge. That is my narrow bridge.
Yeah, no, it's so gorgeous and so beautiful. And it's reminding me so strongly of, I know I also work with private coaching clients who want to develop their intuition. And sometimes
Mm,
we discover through me channeling their guides that their guides are saying your path is energy healing, right? And this is the way that you're here to serve the world. And they kind of go, well, is it Reiki? Do I go get Reiki certified? And a lot of the times what we'll do is we'll go into meditation and we'll call in their guides and we'll just say the guides will just give them instructions in the moment. My guide is telling me to hold my hands like this. My guide is
yes,
telling me to move it this way or to hold my hands open or whatever. They're telling me to say this. And and the whole time you're in this process of like, it's not it's almost as if at some point you become one with whatever guide is working with
yes,
you and through you, and you just know what to be doing. And it's almost like the highest it's like, yes, you're conscious of what's happening, right? You're not in this
of
deep
course.
meditation, but you're so connected that there's almost no, differentiation between you and the guide, and you just know what to do.
That's
And
correct.
when you're in that place, and it sounds like that's what you're experiencing when you're doing the sound healing and the energy
Yeah,
work, it's like it's just working through me so much that my body then becomes almost like the puppet, if you will, so that
exactly.
the work can come through. And it's so beautiful to witness. I do have a different question for you, and I'm curious what your thoughts on this are, because I know that you definitely have opened a lot of our eyes, even just in this conversation, to the healing power of sound and music. And I'm curious if, in using the music or the gong even to shift the frequency of the cells, have you ever witnessed in any of the clients or people that you work with that this then becomes an activation for a spiritual growth for them or their own intuition?
Yes, 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 yes. It is fascinating to me. Not every client gets back to me and says this, but the ones who have, like, I have seen several clients have sound healing. That's what I do. I'm not coaching them. I'm not trying to enlighten them on following their spiritual path and finding their life's purpose and all that stuff. People who have had very, very, very different lives, like mine before and after, had very different lives, came to me for sound healing, had several sessions, and then report back after 6 months. Oh yeah, I had kind of this this realization that I should be doing X, Y, and Z. And so I've started building my life around that. And it's always something that is healing or creative.
Mm.
The creative arts call people, the the healing arts call people who have said, I got so much out of that, and I couldn't I couldn't stop hearing in my head that I needed to, like, learn Reiki. Or people who've gone out and bought themselves a sound healing instrument and then end up with several, just to do their own thing, not even to practice on other people. So yes, but the life journey part of it, the life purpose part, people have reported back, and 6 months, a year later, they've got a totally different life
Yeah.
that came from something. And I believe it's a download. We get these downloads, and it can come because I think when we're in Reiki sessions or sound healing or other kinds of modalities, right? Could be anything. We are in a very open, if we're not worried, if we're not anxious, if our monkey mind isn't going while we're receiving, we're in this very, very open-hearted place
Yeah.
where we are open to our own guides giving us messages that then take space in our heart and begin to grow. They're like little seeds, right? Like I like to envision them as even in the sound healing and Reiki, as what I'm doing is planting seeds in a way. They're coming through me from the divine or source into a person, and taking up space in their heart, and they grow there or they don't.
Yeah.
And I have had sessions with people who have slammed the door on it and
Really?
said, not many, like two or three, but they signed up for a series, and then we get really, really close to something tender from childhood, that was their love, that was their passion, and their life is so not in alignment with that on every level of their life, and they're miserably unhappy, and they see a little light that says, I that is what lit me up and what I can go to. And they slam the door on it and they say, I can't do this. This is too hard. I don't want to let it in. I, I, and it is that part of us, the ego, or in internal family systems, the manager, whatever part of us is saying, no, you got to do that job. You got to make money. You've got to get married and have kids by a certain age, whatever it is, everybody gets different programming from family and society. That programming says to them, slam the door on this, slam the door on this. Do not let this in. You might be happy if you did that. And look what you've built over this lifetime so far. You really want to do that? And I hear that. It's a scary place. Not many clients do that. Like, and I hear other practitioners talk about this. Some people just get so scared that they can't go there. And maybe they will one day. Maybe, because our soul is always speaking to us. If they don't get it that way, it's going to come another way at some point. And maybe it takes the universal smackdown for that to happen, right?
Absolutely. And I do think that, that's the beautiful thing about spirit guides, or, the creator sources, that they're relentless, right? Like if
Yes,
you don't hear it the first time, you'll hear it 10 in 10 other different ways until you kind of get the message. And if you don't figure it out in this lifetime, then you're going to figure it out in the next one, and you'll have the
that's
same
right.
sort of similar circumstances to have to do it. And I also think it's so interesting because, there's something to be said about, yeah, a lot. I mean, and this was even true in my own journey. It was a physical ailment that forced me into alignment, right? I ended
Oh,
up,
yeah.
right? I got into a car accident and then a ski accident, right?
Right.
And then I had 6 months where I was down for the count. And I think there's something about the fact that when you don't have health, you don't have anything. And it really puts
Yes.
you in a place of openness, because it's like I can't live a life until I get better. And so then you kind of get almost hungry, I would say, for
Mhm.
an answer. And that's when you are in a place where you are open to kind of stepping away from all of the programming, right? And you kind of go, everything's been stripped away. If I have my health,
Yes.
I don't have my health, I have nothing, right?
Right.
And that's when you can maybe start to wake up to, what you're really here to do. And I think, and I have a feeling that you're right, that it does circle back around for those people who slam the door in it, because at some point, right,
Yeah.
they can't continue on in that
Yeah.
way. So it's so interesting. I know we're kind of getting close to running out of time. This has been such a beautiful conversation, but I have one other question for you that I would love just to pick your brain on, which is for somebody who is just starting out, right? Maybe they're just going through a realization. Maybe they've had their own personal smackdown, right? Or realization. They're maybe being course correct at the moment. And they're maybe dipping their toe into the water of wanting to hear those downloads a little bit more clearly, right? They really want to dive in, but they're feeling maybe frustrated or lost. What do you recommend to help them open themselves up to all of those messages and be able to actually start to hear them?
Oh, such a good question. Well, I would say, first of all, for our listeners, I will say that I have a free article on my website in Yoga Magazine about intuition that has exercises in it
I love
that help us get to this. Okay.
Mhm.
So we can put that in the show notes, and then people can find it and just read more. And there's more in my book on in the chapter Compass Intuition. Okay. So those resources are there, and for our listeners. But what I would say is it takes a commitment to of time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes a day, when we just unplug everything, close the door in a safe place, and get quiet. It could be in nature. That's also another beautiful place to just get quiet and allow our minds to speak, and quiet the monkey mind, and do the body scan, and just see where in our body we're feeling things. Like if we're sitting there and our shoulders are up to our ears, and our leg muscles are all clenched up, it's like, let's get in touch with the body and relax and say, and talk to our body, like, what's going on? If our heart is racing, we say, oh, my sweet hardworking heart, what's going on with you today? Like, why are you racing like this? There's nothing. We're sitting here in nature and it's beautiful, but you seem to be really agitated. Let's feel into that, what's happening, and just sit. Sometimes this is where people say, oh, I don't have an intuition, it doesn't work for me. I've had clients say this to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't always come right then. It might come when you're showering. It might come when you're driving. It might come when you're doing something where your mind is totally disengaged from the inquiry of what is going on with me. So tapping into our body, understanding, from our health standpoint, what is happening in the body, and all of that. But then just quieting the mind and listening, keeping a dream journal. You and I both love our dreaming. And I have had amazing things happen through my dreams, where I set an inquiry at night where I say, I am open to hearing what I need to do to sleep better.
Mm.
There was a time I was going through terrible insomnia because of the pain. It was
Right.
so horrendous, kept me up. was sleeping 20 minutes at a time. Nothing was working. And I was like, what will help me to sleep and get better sleep so I can heal my beautiful, hardworking body? And I woke up that morning hearing a word, nervines. And this was years ago. This was years ago. And I was like, what are nervines? I don't know what nervines are. I wrote it down. I had to go do my job. And as I was having lunch, I thought, oh, I'll go look that up. What is a nervine? Come to find out, nervines are plants and that can be taken in tea or supplement form that deeply relax us and help us dream and help us sleep. And I was like, that was exactly what I needed. And I started taking nervines every night and I started sleeping a little better. So it was like, it wasn't the total answer, but it was a little piece, and everything is incremental in the healing journey. But I could have just said nervines, never heard of that before, and not done anything about it. So part of it is honoring what comes through, whether it's in waking life, synchronicities. Sometimes you'll be hearing a conversation and people will be talking about something in a restaurant, and it's like, oh, wow, I think that was meant for me, right? Or it comes through a dream, like honoring it, do something with it, look it up, and then try to incorporate it into your life, as long as it's something that feels like it's in alignment.
Yeah.
If it's go jump off a bridge, don't do it, but get help. But
Yeah, absolutely.
so we have to be a little careful with that. But yeah, it's honoring those things in small steps, taking small steps. And what we find in dream journaling is I sometimes work with people who cannot remember their dreams at all. It's like, start a dream journal, whether it's on your computer or phone or in an actual paper notebook, and put the date, put how you felt when you wake up, and say, I know I dreamt, but I don't remember yet. If you have to do that for a month, do it. And then it happens.
I love
The
that.
imaginal realm recognizes that you're listening, and you do start to remember your dreams. I've had this work for people. It's amazing. But that is an honoring, even if don't just say, oh, I don't remember my dreams. It's hopeless. I've never remembered my dreams, and just keep going about business as usual.
Yeah. Ah, so beautiful. Thank you for all of those things. And yes, I actually have tried that myself, of like, even if I don't remember
Right.
anything, or if I only remember one thing, I saw a color, just
Right.
I remember the color, right? Like, just write down
Yes.
anything, and it does it almost like you prep your subconscious mind to pay attention when you do go to sleep. So that's so gorgeous and so beautiful. And I love all of those things. And I agree that it sometimes takes just trusting that one word, right? And not letting yourself second guess it, right? You heard
Yes.
nervings and then you went and actually took action on it, instead of thinking of all of the reasons why that just was nothing, right? So that's so, so beautiful. And I love that story. It's so beautiful. This whole conversation has been so like soul inspiring, lit up, and amazing and beautiful. I wanted to ask if there anything that you would love to share with the listeners that I didn't get a chance to ask you, that you just or didn't get a chance to share, that you want to share.
Yes. Just briefly, I heard you speak recently to someone, I can't remember her name, about, oh, what was it? Human design, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Monica. Okay, it was wonderful. And I have not gotten into human design, but I'm very much into astrology in recent years, and evolutionary astrology. And part of what has been amazing in recent years of sorting out my healing journey and life purpose is really digging into my natal chart to a couple of things: the stars that are present at the time of our birth. Bernadette Brady does this work about the heliacal rising signs and the other stars that are in the sky at the time of our birth that we usually never hear about. One of my most potent ones is Deneb Adige. I'd never heard of Deneb Adige in my entire life, but it turns out to be part of the Cygnus, the swan constellation, which I've been fascinated with since I was a little girl. It just connected the dot. And this is only in the past couple of years. Okay. The other things are our north node and our south node. Our north node being our life purpose, our south node being our past lives, and looking at what part of our chart they are in.
Mm.
And then Chiron is huge. Chiron, the wounded healer. It's very, very big in the charts of those of us who turn out to be on a path of healing ourselves and others. And I only recently discovered Chiron, say, in the past 10 years in my chart. And it makes so much sense for why everything in my life has happened to me. And more recently, Hygeia. Hygeia, I believe the Greek goddess of health, is in an enormously important place in my chart. And I've only come to know Hygeia in the past year.
Wow.
And when I found that out, I was like, oh, look at this. I've got Chiron, I've got Hygeia, I've got North and South Node, and they are all talking to each other. They're having a conversation about where Kathy's going in her life. It's been amazing. And so I just add that, everything that you and I have been talking about, everything that we do, it's incremental. It's one more layer of the onion that we're peeling to get to that life purpose and authentic soul core of who we are. And so I just throw that out there for anybody who might be interested in astrology or this. This affected me so much many years ago that the gong that I bought is a Chiron gong. It is tuned to the frequency of Chiron.
Wow.
That's how, and I think that I attribute that to a lot of the level of like quantum healing that I had with the gong, frankly. And the gong would have been powerful anyway, but I got a Chiron gong. So I just kind of throw that out there because it's another interesting angle for us to pursue as we are doing, this journey of self-actualization and exploration. Yeah.
Yeah, highly recommend and so beautiful. And actually, this is a really good place for me to announce that Monica is actually going to be doing a workshop for us in the intuition
Oh.
activation community next week, I believe, on May 12th. So if you're not in the community yet, big plug, go join so you can come and join Monica and learn how to dive into your natal chart. She's
I
going to
want to do that. Yeah.
so yeah, Kathy, you're welcome to come and join us. We'd love to have you there. Thank you so much for mentioning that. And yes, I personally have not had the chance to dive deep enough into my natal chart. I mean, my connections with Monica are probably my first time really, really diving in deep. And it's almost like a big, I want to say it's a big permission slip to be who you are, but it
Mhm.
also it's like the big explanation of who you are. If that
Yeah,
makes sense. It's like,
it
oh,
is.
that's why I am the way I am.
It's a map. Like, we often say about children, oh, we wish they came with instruction manuals. Well, your astrological chart
Yeah.
is a life map, an instruction manual of like where to focus. In my chart, I have the moon in Aries, fifth house, creativity. I've been creative since I was a little kid. But
Yeah.
I have been stepping into that in a bigger and bigger way throughout my life. And when I realized that in my chart many years ago in an evolutionary astrology reading with Stephen Forrest, it was like, that is the whole point of my life, is expressing my creativity. And my South Node is there indicating some, persecution in past lives for expressing myself creatively. So it's like it all ties it up in a nice little bow. It does. And I just highly encourage people, because I think so many of us look at, newspaper column astrology and we just roll our eyeballs and laugh. But really, when we dig into like things like evolutionary astrology or human design, again, I don't know much about it and I'm eager to explore it. These things are our roadmaps to our lives.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. Oh,
fascinating.
amazing. I appreciate that you brought that up. It's so true and so beautiful. And it's just one other piece to you kind of stepping into what is my true path and purpose,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah,
oh,
it's all there.
much. Kathy, this has been such a beautiful and thrilling conversation. I appreciate you and your work so, so much. I would love if you could share with the listeners if they want to connect with you further, where can they find you? Where can they discover your work? And how can we just connect with you even more?
Beautiful. Thank you. First of all, Jessica, it has been just a delight and an honor and thrilling. I have loved this conversation so, so, so much. Thank you. everyone can find me at my website, sufferingtothriving.com. And there they can connect to all my social media. I have a lot of free content there. If you scroll way down on the homepage, there are articles in Yoga Magazine and Best Holistic Life on finding your purpose. There are articles on intuition. There are articles on sound healing, and they all have clickable links to some of the things I've talked about. And then with Dr. Charlize Davis, I've done a free multi-module training on healing the heart chakra. And Dr. Charlize is a doctor of functional medicine. She talks about the heart chakra, which is more than the heart and the breast. It's much more than that. And I talk about it from the energy standpoint, the vibrational energy, Reiki and sound healing and all of that, color therapy, all the things. And that's all for free when you go to my website. And then I have another website that I launched last year following this, the intuition to take my night dreams and paint them. I've always written them, I've drawn them, but I kept getting these urges to paint them. And I kept saying, oh, I don't know about that. That's so far out. I'll paint them, but I don't think I'm going to make it a website. And my intuition kept saying, you got to do it. You got to just go do it. And I did it. And it's called dancing-between-worlds.art.
Wow.
So
Oh my
everyone
gosh,
can
I'm
find me there
jumping to
too.
go check that out right now. That's so cool. I love it.
And it gives people I don't just post the art, I write a little blurb about like, what is it? Like, you can take your own interpretation of the art itself, but like, what led me to that? What was the dream? Like, what exactly happened in that dream that compelled me to make a painting out of it? And so you'll see a little bit about, I think it's instructional on how to work with your dreams. You don't have to paint them. You could draw them. You could sing your dreams. You could, skip or dance or hum your dreams. Like, you can do whatever you want with your dreams, but it's kind of an instruction on honoring the dream.
Mm.
And when we do, more and more pours forth. I've got 5 paintings on easels right now, five from dreams that just will not stop talking to me. I don't want them to stop talking to me, but it's like, I can't paint fast enough to get all the big dreams out. And these are really big, beautiful, important dreams for myself. And I think some of them for the collective. And so it's about when you it's like anything. It's like when you open the water spigot and it hasn't run for a long time and it just drips out and then it begins gushing forward. That's what happens with our intuition. That's what happens with our dreams, right? All the things. It's like, that's what happens. Energy goes where our intention goes. So if we set the intention for these things, to develop our intuition, to develop our dreams, energy follows that. It's like a magnet. And that is what happened with this website. I think I started it with 3 or 4 paintings, and now it's just, I've got a ton of them and I've got more coming.
Wow. Oh, that's so beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing all that. We're definitely going to go and check all of those out. I'm definitely doing that as soon as we log off. I'm so curious, but that's so beautiful. And this has just been so beautiful. So thank you, Kathy, so much for joining us. And yeah, it's just been a pleasure.
It's been great. Wonderful. Thank you, dear.
Thank you.
Blessings to everyone.
Yeah. Hi guys, I'm just jumping in here at the end of the episode because I realized I forgot to put into the intro the answer to last week's intuitive development activity. So last week we did an exercise trying to envision an angel number and letting that show up throughout our lives. I've had a lot of you send me messages on Instagram seeing that you've been getting a lot of different angel numbers showing up at even more than before since that activation exercise. And so I want to say that if you got any angel number at all over the course of this week since doing that exercise, I want you to count that as a win. You definitely were getting, I have a feeling that after I did the exercise, I sort of had this feeling that perhaps your guides were giving you the angel number that you most needed because different angel numbers have different messages. However, the number that I did have in my mind when I was doing that exercise for you guys was 333. So the number 3 times, 333. So let me know on Instagram Instagram if you did get the actual angel number 333. But if you got any angel number or multiple angel numbers throughout the week after doing that exercise, count that as a win. And then I highly recommend going to research and look up what those specific angel numbers mean for you. What is it that your guides or angels were trying to tell you and point you towards in receiving those numbers? So that's it for this week's episode, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Love you. Bye.